Hi, my name is Kimberly Adams, and I'm your host of the Daughters of Zion talk show. The Daughters of Zion meets in the beautiful sanctuary of Jesus People Church at 4400 Hickory Hill Road, right here in Memphis, Tennessee. We have a great show for you this evening, but before we get started, I'd like to introduce to you our distinguished guests. First, on my close right is Sister Melissa Thomas.
Hey, how you doing?
Next to her is our awesome woman of God, Sister Angela Jones.
Hello.
Thank you, ladies, for being here tonight.
Yes.
It's going to be another great show for you today, where we'll be speaking about the prophetess Anna. She is found in the book of Luke, and one thing or a few things about her: she was, of course, a prophetess. She was married for 7 years and lost her husband, and within that time she did never marry again, and she continued to do the work of the Lord. She was very, very focused. She maintained fasting and prayer, and although she had lost her husband, she didn't find herself searching necessarily for another. And I'm going to give us our title for today to be Maintaining Our Focus. Only what you do for God will last. And Sister Melissa, I'm going to start off with you. What is something about Sister Anna, or Prophetess Anna, that really stood out for you? Because it's not a lot about her in Luke, but you can make some assumptions or assertions by just reading her story. What made her stand out for you?
Well, one thing, I know she was married one time and she didn't marry again, and that stood out for me because I've always wanted to be married, and then when I was like shacking, knowing I ain't supposed to, I was like, once I get out of this, he gonna have to be my husband. So that was one great point that stood out to me, because marriage is very important to me. You know, once you do it, that's it.
You only want one time around.
One time.
That's a great point. Sister Angela, I'm going to come to you, and I want you to bring out something that was positive or even negative, or anything that really stood on your ground for her. What made her an important prophetess in the Bible?
What made her important to me was she stayed firm in what she believed. She never quit worshiping the Lord, no matter what it was. Even when her husband's gone, like Melissa was, like you stated, she didn't go look for another one. She didn't remarry. And you said something in the beginning of the show when you said only what you do for God will last. And I'm gonna be honest, like that's what keep me doing a lot of things. You know, whenever you get invited to, if I get invited to do this talk show, or you ask me to do something else, and that stays in my head, because I want it to last. You know, we build our treasures up for heaven while we're here on earth. So whatever it's something for God, you know, you should make yourself available. It should not be an issue when it comes, if you're doing this for the Lord, you know, because you know it's going to last.
Right. And that's a great point. And you know, one thing about Anna for me is the point that she did get married, and she was married probably very young, because according to the Bible, she was a prophetess pretty much alone for 84 years. Wow. So if we do all the math, it could be that she was around for 105 years of age. So she was around for a long time, with it just being her. And Melissa, I want you to speak to that, because we find that a lot of women have a problem with being alone. Let's talk about that a little bit, because we need to bring that out, because Anna is an example, which most of the people in the Bible are examples for us, be it a good example, what we should do, or something that we should not do. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to just not be married till you're 105 or something like that, but it is important that we have enough self-confidence and self-respect and be so focused on what we're doing for God that the outside world's expectation of us doesn't fall on us. And we got to be okay to be by ourselves. Talk about why that's important.
Well, you know, I'm going to be honest. You know, sometimes being alone, it does get lonely, but you also have to remember, with God, anything is possible. You just have to go to him and talk to him. God, when you ready for me to be with somebody, then you will present that person to me. So I say my prayers, and I pray, and I don't have a problem with it. I sleep with so much peace, because I know, you know, when that time comes, it's gonna happen. I ain't out here looking. I ain't out here walking the streets trying to find nothing. When he knock on the door, God's gonna send him there.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. When that door get to knocking, you gonna come on and open that.
That's right.
Get to know him a little bit, you know. Don't just open the door.
He got to be the man of God first.
Right.
First and foremost, it got to be.
So, Sister Melissa, I want you to kind of Sister Angela, I want you to kind of piggyback on that, because Sister Melissa said something important and said that she's waiting on God to present that gentleman to her. Yeah. Talk about how we get it mixed up. That we'll find a guy and we swear that God done sent them. God sent him. Like, now how did God send him that? You found him in the club somewhere. He got 4 different women. He got a wife and everything. Right. That's the man that you think God sent you. Talk about how we get that twisted, and what can we say to the women that may be watching to kind of fix that line?
I think we get that twisted a lot because we're looking at the relationship in the flesh. When you dealing with it in the flesh, if it's feeling good and he looking good, you will swear the Lord sent him to you. Because I got a story. I met my daughter's dad. We didn't meet in the club. We met at his brother's laundromat. And this boy got the quote in the Bible. And I'm like, oh, okay then. So he might be okay. He know the Bible. He know the Lord. You know, you forget that the devil come in sheep's clothing. So turned out to be like, only good thing I got, my daughter came out of the relationship. But Lord have mercy. So when you in that flesh, you can make it seem like it's from God. And we've been taught that being alone and lonely are two different things. So you alone, but when you got the Lord, you're never really lonely. And when those feelings come upon you, and I need to hear this myself, you can pray and ask him. He'll give you a way of escape. But see, sometimes your body, your flesh, you don't want to escape. You want whatever that is, whatever that feeling is. And as a woman, sometimes, you know, that those nights, they can be a little hard. But I promise, if you pray about it, it'll go away. It'll make you upset. Like, oh, you know, at one point in time, I was like, I could not talk to a boy. It's like every time I thought I was going to talk to somebody, something came up, something happened. I was like, Lord, look at you. I was like, you really be looking out for me more than I look out for myself.
And it's so important that you said that we got to make sure that we understand the difference between the love and the flesh.
Yes.
Because we get all caught up, and we believe just because we allow the pressures of the world to put on us. When we see the Facebook and, ooh, she out of town with him, and she had a husband, she did all that. So now we chasing that Facebook dream and not chasing the will of God.
That's it.
And one thing about Anna that made her so powerful was she spent the time fasting and praying. And in fasting and praying, that's where we're able to put the flesh into subjection. If you continue to fast, if you continue to pray, that's when you can make the flesh say, you're secondary, God is first. Right. And so, Melissa, talk about that a little bit, because how important is it that we come into a church that we can get to hear the word that's feeding our spirit so the flesh won't be so strong? Because if you don't hear the word of God, you don't know what God's trying to tell you, because you ain't heard nothing he said.
That's right.
Talk about how important it is to be a part of a church in order to maintain your focus.
Ooh. Now that's important.
Yes.
Now, that's important. I'm telling you. When you inside, see, a lot of people get it twisted and confused when they say, oh, I can sit at home and be at church. It's really a different feeling when you inside of the tabernacle. You being fed mentally and physically. So that's great important. You get a feeling that God is already sitting next to you always. He's holding your hand. It's like you can feel him, and I be like, man, that's the greatest feeling ever, to have a church home that you can come in where it's love. And you know it's love, and you gonna get that word. Now a lot of preachers preach straight from the Bible, but you got to also put that real life inside of it, because the world out here is going on. So, you know, to be a great part of a church, that's great.
It is.
And you know, it is important that, of course, we stay within the Bible, but at the same time, we have to make it relative to the people.
That's right.
And if they can't reach the word, meaning that, you know, everyone's not coming through the door a Bible scholar. So just because you can quote Luke or you can say something about Matthew doesn't mean that you're relating it to the people.
That's right.
And that's why that's so important. And Sister Angela, I want you to speak to the fact that Sister Melissa said you come into a church where there's love. And one thing about Anna, she had to have some love or a sense of love for what she was doing for God. Once you are committed to what you're doing for God, there's a spirit of love that comes over you that takes the place of the opposite sex love, the husband love. You know, she was married for only 7 years and she lost her husband. She could have been bitter after that. How do we have enough love for what we're doing for God to not be bitter over the losses in our lives?
Wow. Yeah, to have enough love for God so we won't be bitter. First of all, it's just, that's not, only thing I can say is that you got to know and love God initially to begin with, and know that He loves you more than you probably love yourself, and knowing that He is the ruler of all and He is like Alpha and Omega. To know His position, you have to, if you give Him that proper reverence, you know, that love, it'll come. And she wasn't able to be bitter, which was a great thing, because at the age, how long she was when she wasn't married, I'm not going to sit and say that, you know, another woman would have waited that long. You've been at 84 years, and she had to be pretty young, so she was still vibrant, you know, and she never did go. But when you have that love for the Lord like she showed, and it comes with a spirit of excellence in the end. So if you doing it for the Lord, you're gonna want to do it right. You're gonna want to do it consistently. You know, it's not gonna even be a doubt, or if, and, or but. I'm doing this for the Lord. I gotta do this right. I gotta constantly do this because you know it's right. Whatever you do for the Lord is gonna last. And I mean, that's about the best way I can sum that up.
Well, you did a good job of something. So, Melissa, tell me, because Angela opened the door about how the husband died while she was relatively young. So if we do our own math, of course we weren't there, so we can't say. So she might have been 21, 22 years old when the husband died. How is it that at the age of 22, we think we got to know and do everything in the world, like your life about to be over, I need to get everything in because I'm getting old? What do we say to the younger women out there that's watching us tonight, that's wondering, well, I'm 22, I'm supposed to be out here, I'm supposed to be doing this, and God has a bigger call for you?
Yes, cause see, I fell in that category the once upon a time when I was younger, cause I had my first son when I was 16 years old. I was young. I was out in the street, and if I knew what I knew now, you know, God has a plan for you. He already know what your life is gonna be about. Sometimes we get out of order because we feel like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But it don't matter the age, young or old, you still have to set yourself up for being in abundance. You have to, you don't never want to be bound. So as I got older, I realized, wow, my life could have been in so much. It could have been so much better if I just would have followed the Lord as I started as a child, instead of, you know, getting into the world and then getting back with God, which is an awesome thing. So, you know, y'all young ones out there, trust and believe. It ain't nothing in the world. You take your time and grow, learn and live. You live more prosper when you taking your time into the Lord. The Lord grows you. Amen,
amen. Yeah. The Lord grows you, she said. And Sister Angela, talk about the fact that why are we so impatient? We really have to delve into this, because one thing about Anna shows us that we can do more, we can be more, we can be strong, but it amazes me how people are so impatient and feel like they are not going to be successful until they're married, until they have that man in that house. Why can't we be successful in God, successful as single women, successful as widows? Why do we have to be so impatient? What do you think causes that?
The impatience, it could be whatever the woman thinks that she had, like you said, Facebook. We live in the dream, and you want to be like them. Oh, they got married. You want to be married too, but if it's not the will of God, even if you do, it's not gonna last. It's not gonna work properly. But you got to learn to love yourself. Like she was talking about the younger women, and you got to learn to love yourself. Know what you want first, and then learn what the Lord's will is for you. Because some people you really don't know. Like we all have a purpose. Some of us don't know our purpose, and we still learning what our purpose is. And just being patient, because at the end of the day, with you trying to rush and do something, nobody knows the time of the day. You can try to rush. Just say you're 22 and you I got to get married, I got to get this and that, and you never, in the next 30 minutes, the Lord gonna call you home. So you rushing for what reason, what purpose? Like everything is in His time anyway. So when it's time for you to get there, you're gonna get there. When we were younger, we did a lot of stuff, we all have to learn. He looked over us. He watched us still. He allowed us to go through. He allowed us to make these dumb mistakes. You know what? I'm still gonna keep her. I'm still gonna. This is my child. I love her. And I think sometimes we go through those things to get us to be that better person, to turn out to be this great woman of God. If you didn't go through those things, you wouldn't have a testimony. You wouldn't know what God could do to get you to where you are right now.
That's awesome. You open another door for me. I like when y'all let me walk through these doors, because we all have lived a certain life. And with every trial, there comes a triumph, because you got out of that trial. And with every trial and triumph, there's a testimony. Yeah. How important is it that we speak our testimony, Sister Melissa, to people? And not to say that you got to get all and tell everybody all your business.
Right.
But you do have to show people that I went through that, and now look at me, I got out of it. I've been through abusive relationship, or in your case, having a child very early, or just what you've gone through. Why is it important that we share that and not let people think that we got it going on so much now and we ain't come through anything? Talk about how we as women got to share more in a good spirit.
Well, I'm gonna say we have to share our testimonies, because we also want the young people, the ones who going through we want them to know there's a better way. There's not an end. There's always still a beginning. You can always come from the bottom to the top. Like Jesus said, we're the head and not the tail. You can always create and follow and observe and get what your blessing is. You just gotta mouth, just like your hand. You're gonna put the good here, you're gonna put the bad here. And when you put them together, it's always a better outcome, because God got it set there for you. He got it set there for you. And when you give your testimonies and you tell a person, look, I've drunk, I've smoked, I've partied, but look at me now.
Right.
There's always a better solution to any downfall.
That's true.
When you tell a person, look at me. Because see, a person now look at me now and be like, wait a minute, something done changed about you. Yeah, because the things that I did then, I don't do now. So when I'm telling a person that, I want a person to feel like I can change. I can have so much more. It's been times where I've been late with bills, couldn't find $1. But when God started ordering my steps, I became more prosperous. I'm blessed. So when I tell people, look, you don't have to do this that way. I've done it this way. But when I do it this way, it's a better outcome. You always want peace. And so when you give your testimony, that's a relief. That's a pressure off for you. That's helping another person. That's relieving pressure off for them to know that they can do better.
Right. You
that's true.
said some stuff right there, because you also mention that from where you came to where you are, you had to let people know, I've done this and it didn't work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people don't understand, well, why not? Why isn't it look like it's working for her? It look like it's working for her. No, it's not. It's not really working, and only what you do for God is going to last. Only things that God has allowed to happen in your life is to draw you more close to Him.
Right.
And the closer you are to Him, the more he can work on you to reach that prosperity that he has for you. Now, Sister Angela, talk about, because Melissa opened up the door again for that club mentality and being out there partying and drinking and smoking, and that is so prevalent in our young folks today.
Yeah.
And you growing up, these teenagers, which growing up to be young adults, and you too, Melissa, you know, these boys coming up, how do you keep them and them not looking at you like, well, mama, you just old, you never did anything. But at the same time, you don't want to tell them all your business, because then they think they're going to be able to get out like you did.
Right.
Just because, you know, that God got you out. They do the same thing that you did, and they might fall by the wayside. So what do you say to them? How do you continue to stay in their ear to let them know, baby, there's nothing out there? What do you say to them?
What I say to my children, see, they think I turned 49 overnight. Like, I wasn't 18.
Right.
I wasn't 20.
Yeah.
I've been 18 twice. I'm 36, 18 plus 18 is 36. So I done been 18 twice. So
Right.
I done made it to 49. So I didn't get this far being too foolish, you know, and I didn't get this far anyway without the Lord. So when they come to me and they tell me certain things, I try to show them. Like, my daughter had a situation, and she said, she came to me, she was like, you know what, Mom, I already know. I know what you're going to say, because you did tell me I got to deal with this myself. So I'm going to tell you the truth, and I don't sugarcoat anything with them. So when my son come and he'll tell me something about what happened with a little guy, and I give him an example, say, let me tell you something, you look at this, everybody ain't your friend.
Right.
This, and that. I pull out the lesson that they may not see in what it is that they're telling me. So they can never say, my mama didn't tell me, or I didn't know, you know, or anything like that. And just to let them know, you know, I let them slide sometimes on something. I was young once. I did some stuff. So I know that you're going to do it too. But as long as you take care and handle it properly, and I can see that it's not affecting you to the point where it's detrimental to your health or detrimental to the family, then okay, I'm gonna let him go by and go through his little phase or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, when they're telling me things, and that's another thing, you got to talk to your kids. A lot of kids don't want to talk to their parents, so we used to have game night, and then we play games, and you'd be amazed when you playing with these children, the stuff that come out. You know, you'd be like, oh, okay, so 'cause they don't think they snitching or telling it, because they just talking. But you take those situations and pull out a lesson in them, because they may not see them all the time.
That's so good, Angela. I love the game night and being able to talk to your kids. And Melissa, you have two boys, right?
I actually have three.
You have 3 boys, all beautiful, strong young men. How do you keep them maintaining their focus? Because they seem like, and I'm not in your house, and you know, boys gonna be boys. So I don't know all the stuff they do. But when you see them, they're maintaining focus, and that's the whole purpose of this session. We want to talk about how do you maintain focus in your life, in your children, in your household. So let's talk about the boys. How do you keep them maintaining their focus? Because Anna had a focus and she maintained hers. What did we do?
Well, I sit down and I talk to them a lot, and I try to let them know, look, I'm getting you ready for adulthood. Because you think because you're young and mama, we ain't doing it like that, they don't do it like that no more. That's what they say. But I say, they don't do it like that, but look at me. Look at your mama, how I strive. I say, if you don't want to be like, and I point their friend out, like Charles. Charles got a friend that's 14 years old, and he said he had slept with 15 girls. And I was like, Charles, you don't want a friend like that, because even though you don't do what they do, you run with them. Birds of a feather flock together. And so I always try to tell them, look, you got to set yourself up for adulthood. You don't ever want to be a follower. If this is what you want, you always got to have your own mind. Know that what you see, you don't have to do. Know that what they're doing, you don't have to go by it. So I always talk to them and let them know, look, and especially Charles because he think he's so fine, and I always have to tell him, God, don't forget that. God, don't forget that. And then I like it when he throw back on me, because when we be at church on Sundays and I go home and I say something, he'll throw back what Pastor said, like the nails, and he gonna tell his brother, get her. I said, he don't want these nails. Charles said, I got a whole pack of nails. I said, oh, okay. But see, I always want them to learn, you know, and follow God. And you prospering when you follow God. You on the right path. You know, I know they gonna get out of hand every now and then, but I always have to let them know. You got to know God in order to, you know, prosper, to understand life, to understand people. You just got to know God. That's all. You have to know God.
And I think that's where we're losing so much in our society, because people don't know God.
Yes.
And coming off of the pandemic, and people weren't able to go to church, and people really didn't seek God because we can't go to church, so we can't hear any word. So we lost so much in those 2 years. We're still trying to catch up from what we lost in the pandemic times.
And then that's another thing I want to speak on before it ends. That's why I told him during the pandemic, I said, you seen all the churches closed. I said, did Jesus People Church close? I said, we were not closed. We served God, and we did it. I said, we are the head, not the tail. So you got to know where your life ends and where it's going to begin, because it's going to start with God and it's going to end with God.
And I think as a church, we knew people need to be fed.
Yes.
You can't just go without eating for 2 years and 2.5 years, or however long the pandemic.
Like you said, fall by the wayside.
You're going to fall by the wayside. And we're seeing the evidence of that with these kids driving like they're driving, how they're killing like they're killing, robbing like they're doing. And we're outside of the will of God. So, Sister Angela, I'm going to have you give us one thing that you know about Anna that you want to leave with these young folks, with the young people, with the women that be watching, even the men that might be watching. What did you learn? What did you receive? What can we do to help people that are going by the wayside?
What she did that stood out and that I know works is fasting and praying.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand. And then, you know, you can fast and pray. You can pray all day. Nobody has to know you're doing it. Nobody has to know you're fasting. But fasting and praying works. It breaks a lot of chains. It breaks a lot of habits. It does a lot. That's really stuck out, because you got to get back better at doing my fasting. But it works.
At least try. At least try. Melissa, what you need to tell them? You got 1 minute. Tell them what you need to tell them.
Don't rush life. Always be patient, because what's for you is for you. Can't nobody take. Or God has ordered everyone's steps. Everyone has a part to play in life. Play your part.
That's awesome. Play your part in life. And if I can say one thing about Anna that I learned is, just because you take a loss doesn't mean that it's over. You know, a loss doesn't mean that it's over. God has a plan for us, and we have to walk in the plan of God and not the plan of man. Yeah, it looks good, but everything that shines everything that glitters ain't gold, and everything that shimmers don't necessarily shake for you. So we got to be mindful that God has a plan for us. I thank you ladies so much for being here. This has been a great show. We didn't think we had a lot to talk about Anna, but we had a whole lot to talk about Anna. Thank you all for watching. Be blessed.